Hogue on the show, we explored Donald Trump's chances of making it through the presidential primaries. Would he succeed, or would he be fired? Now that the primaries are over and the candidates for the Democratic and Republican parties are set, who will be the one to take it all the way to the White House? Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton? What do they bring to the table? What will a presidency under their leadership be like? With mounting fear of both candidates, who does John think will most likely look out for the American people? Hi, I'm Dr. Rita Louise, and this is Just Energy. Today we're speaking to John Hogue, who is the author of 600 articles and 35 published books. He has predicted the winner of every U.S. presidential election since 1968, giving him a remarkable 12-0 batting average. Hogue is a worldwide renowned expert on the prophecies of Nostradamus and other prophetic traditions. His webpage is hogueprophecy.com, so please welcome John Hogue. John, oh my God, I am so glad you are back on the show. We have so much to talk about. The last time you were on in the beginning of February, we talked about what was up in the air, whether Trump was going to get the Republican nomination, whether there would be a contested convention, that whole thing. But in general, what do you think about the events that have unfolded, since that point in time, and now that we've just gotten through the conventions?
Well, it has been, I'll say one thing, my Trump for President astrological predictions of all my 40 books and counting, what I wrote in early October about this phase in his potential to be president has almost been 100% accurate. Even in the possible alternative futures that kind of tarried near, like the dispute with the convention. But what I said, and there was a dispute in the convention, but it was watered down. But I said that once he passed April 1st, his energies would change. That square would lift on him, and he would never look back. He'd go all the way to the convention and be the nominee. And I even said, even if there was disputes in the convention, I still saw him clearly astrologically being the man at the end. Even if it had been brokered, he would be the president nominee of the Republican Party. And as I said on that show, I still say now, as now that Clinton has finally won, and it's official since yesterday that she is the nominee of the Democrats for president, that basically I've been saying since 2000, December of 2000, I think on Coast to Coast AM with Ian Punnett was the first time I said it. Somebody was concerned, we had an astrologer on who was concerned about Bill Clinton somehow managing to get around the Constitution to become president of the United States for a third time. And I said, well, that's impossible. However, he may end up being the first gentleman, because I foresee Hillary Clinton being president of the United States at some time. That was 16 years ago. And I've been making presidential predictions since 1968. I am currently 12-0. I make predictions based on tuning into the popular vote. And I have a feeling that in all of those attempts, I've only 3 times had caveats that I felt I had to mention, where a future that looked so certain had some weird potential that could turn it on its ear. It's only happened 3 times out of 12. And the 3 times, the first one was, of course, Gore versus Bush. I very clearly said, I see Al Gore winning by 500,000 votes. He will win. But I also equally feel that I'm going to equally be wrong. And I don't understand how the two can meet. Well, as it turned out, he did win 500,000 popular votes, but he was denied in the recount of Florida, and the Supreme Court shut that down. And so he lost. He lost not by the people did not choose him. That's why I couldn't see it in my predictions. That's what I learned from it. I couldn't see it because it wasn't decided by the people. It was decided by 9 justices of the Supreme
Some
Court.
dangling chads.
Yeah, and dangling Chad, which sounds like a strip dancer. But anyway, so that's what happened with that. The second time I had a caveat was a year before the Democratic primaries of 2008 began. I very clearly saw what was Hillary Clinton's albatross. I saw this 1 weak link in her campaign which could deny her the presidency that she was assured to get in 2008. But her own blunder would prevent it, and that is that she would not find a way to apologize for her vote to support George Bush's war in Iraq. And that the anti-war movement, what at that time was very strong, would be just enough to tip what I saw was her main competitor, Barack Hussein Obama of Illinois, that they would have a very vigorous, close-matched primary, and that she would lose because enough of those votes would go over to him, and that she could be denied and delayed her presidency for 4 to 8 years. Now we go to the third.
Let's not talk about this one yet. Okay, let's come back to that.
Okay, but my whole point is these caveats. Okay, I want to establish who I am as a predictor of presidents, and so it's rare for me to give caveats. So I have a third caveat, and it's again with Hillary Clinton, her ability to sabotage a sure thing by blundering, because I frankly I think history, and I'll make this prediction now, I think history will judge her as a rather thick-headed mediocrity as a president. And it's because she makes these blunders that are really silly and not well thought out with the consequences. And in this, we'll talk about how she blunders later, but her blunder is how she does not understand how to defeat Trump. And that could very well see her lose and make me wrong in the 13th attempt and break my winning streak.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about Hillary. So if people want to know more about Trump astrologically, I would love to refer them to the other show because we went in total depth into his personality, his chart, his strengths and weakness. So I don't really want to spend time on that.
Yeah.
But we haven't talked about Hillary at all. So let's kind of dig into her a little bit.
I have a bunch of charts up here on my computer screen. And let's see, I'll arrange them. What I've done is arrange them according to what I feel is the true ascendant chart for the United States birth chart. I mean, when I look at a person's future as president, I make a composite or a relationship chart between the United States chart, birth chart, and their birth chart, and see the correlations. In her case, I just gotta bring her up. The problem with Hillary Clinton is that she has 2 charts that.
Why? Because she was adopted, or she's an alien, or
dispute about what time she was born, and it does. Was she born at 8 p.m. or born at 8 a.m.? And so. Let's see.
Well, you would think her mom would remember something like that.
Well, I wouldn't even put it past the situation being that they just wanted to make that obscure so people wouldn't be able to look at her chart. But I think actually that her situation is. I look at the 2 charts and I feel the chart that shows her at 8:02 a.m. is more like the Hillary Clinton I see in the way she behaves. And the most significant thing about this chart is that, like Donald Trump, she has an afflicted Mercury. So they say things and think things that are a little off the wall sometimes, and make mistakes, and they're both actually loose cannons. Although she hides it better. and her handlers hide it better. It's like what happened with the long video they did to kind of let's get to know Hillary, and in a sentimental, propagandist, beautiful way, they painted her as best they could. But I found it amazing that, except for just showing her as somebody present in the war room when bin Laden was killed, there you never hear anything about how much influence she had on the decisions of that important day. It's just like, well, Hillary's there, ergo she is experienced, you know.
Hmm.
And certainly when that was the only thing they pulled out of her 4 years of Secretary of State, and didn't pull anything else out. It just ended after that. They left with that, and then they just avoided Benghazi. They avoided Libya. They avoided the fact that she pushed and pushed Obama to get more aggressive in Syria and make that war a shooting war and arm the rebels who turncoat and went to ISIS and al-Nusra fronts. None of that is, of course, she can't talk about that. You know, she hasn't built nations. She's already under her belt got one nation that she destroyed, Libya. And so, and we're not going to talk about the fact that when she was Secretary of State, the Clinton Foundation got a $53 million donation from King Abdullah of Saudi Arabia, the previous king of Saudi Arabia, who she smooched with a lot and was very close with. And then she had been on a diplomatic mission to Riyadh, and then she came back when all this was happening, and then suddenly she had the power to, even though she was officially not part of the Clinton Foundation, she had the power as Secretary of State to lift a limitation on foreign purchases of military hardware so that Saudi Arabia could buy $62 billion of U.S. hardware.
And you're not feeling any kind of weird conspiracy in all of this?
Well, I am. I'm seeing basically she is trading. She's used the Clinton Foundation. In fact, the Clinton Foundation has been used to buy and sell power and influence in the United States foreign policy, and she even kept it going as Secretary of State. It's just an interesting coincidence. I mean, I used to be concerned about the conflict of interest of Vice President Dick Cheney and his oil connections. But when I look at the record of what certain things that got donated, and then certain things when the State Department got passed, I'm looking at a very corrupt. Dick Cheney looks like a choir boy compared to Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation. And that's why the corporations, not just in America, but the multinational corporations, absolutely love her and her foundation, because now she's going to be literally in power, trading leverage with foreign interests. And, you know, she can say, you know, she could do her John Wayne drone the other day and say, we do not expect to elect a dictator. And she talks about Donald Trump, but I mean, she knows well. She's been schmoozing and friendly with some of the worst dictators on this planet, like King Abdullah and his successor Salman of Saudi Arabia, who are just 2 steps away from being ISIS, with the way they serially murder people for minor offenses, but with a scimitar sword, like this is the medieval times in Saudi Arabia. And she's doing inside trading with them politically, and you know, she used to be a friend of Muammar Gaddafi, who she destroyed. So you know, she shouldn't. I mean, these things are all going to come out. Most likely, I mean, they're already out there, but the corporate media has already chosen her as the president of the United States because they are hot. So coming back to her chart.
Wait, let me just throw in just one little interjection. I find it fascinating what the corporate media is choosing to speak on and not speak on regarding her.
Yeah, she has been chosen to be the president. That's why I think it's all. I mean, the amount of money now that's starting to awaken just today, day after this thing is done. The corporate vultures are assembling, and they are digging deep into their pockets as we speak. And now she is getting flooded with millions of dollars for her campaign because, and this is probably why she will win, because they're just going to outspend Donald Trump like there's no tomorrow. But still, looking at her chart, the problem that I see is that I can sympathize with a lot of her chart because she has similar aspects to mine. I'm also a double Scorpio, and she's a double Scorpio, her ascendant and her sun. And I also have, I don't have Mercury in the 12th house. The 12th house is a very karmic place. It's where it is a powerful mass networking communicative place to be, but it's also where all your hidden subconscious enemies of the mind are. And unless one's on a path of meditation, there's a lot of subconscious motivations that rule her Venus in Scorpio, her ego, her diplomat, her Venus, and her mind, her Mercury, this is one of the reasons why, because of all these afflictions she has in Leo with her Saturn, Mars, and Pluto, all in Leo, squared her Venus, ascendant, and Mercury. That means her diplomat, her mind, and how she expresses herself and appears to the world. It reads clearly, we don't trust you. We don't see you as coming completely free and open. Scorpios have a problem with secretiveness. And she has a lot of deep feelings and deep secrets, and there's a feeling, this aura that she cannot shake, and it really upsets her. I have even seen on rare occasions her almost get emotional about it, where she actually reveals a little glimpse of that goddess inside her, and I can see that even that little that's just on the surface, she feels deeply and profoundly with these kind of aspects, but she doesn't let it out. It's a shame, really, because the few times she's let it out is the few times I've felt like, wow, here's the feminine principle coming to power in her. Otherwise, she's been putting a mannish lid on that, and that's the Leo squares. That's her Mars, her energy, her Pluto, how the world influences her, and her Saturn, her karmic limiter, her reality checker, are all in these huge. They're all conjoined in Leo. It's intriguing to me, and it's all in the 9th house, which means her karmic lesson is to rise higher, to a higher understanding, and she's tried. I mean, even as early on as a lawyer, for trying to defend against kids and abuses of kids and all and things, she's trying very hard, actually. In fact, she's trying too hard, and she
But
trips
that's where the
herself.
rub is. If she's trying, but then there's this whole other aspect that's tied to her of cheating, lying, and corruption. So it's like, what is she just trying to make a lot more money?
The problem is, it's the currency is power, and the Osho, my teacher, once said something quite unusual, because we usually train to look at the corruption of power in a different view. Most people say power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. That was the famous quote. He had another view, and I have to agree with him from my own experience with power and how it affects people. The power doesn't corrupt. Power is neutral. Power is an enabler to expose to you what you're hiding from yourself in your 12th house, like Hillary Clinton. Power will enable corruption that's already in your subconscious mind if you have not accessed it. If you don't have the power, you'll never know. So it's almost like what happens with if you truly love somebody, death can actually, of that person, can actually test just how deep your love really went. If you had, when that person dies, if you'll suddenly discover that you maybe held back, that you didn't love enough, and that's where a lot of the pain of mourning and grief comes from. But if you've been total in your love with a parent, a husband, a wife, a child, and if they die, you keep that love. That love remains. It abides like a taste of eternity inside you. I mean, I just experienced this because a person of 60 years who's been my best friend and my mentor and my mother just died on the 15th of July. I've been taking care of her for years, and she died beautifully. And I know for a fact, I bear witness to it, that the test of death is a blessing, just like the test of power. Because if you're on the path of truth, you want to see what's underneath you. You want to see what's sabotaging you, that thing that your blinders of ego doesn't let you see. And and in her case, Hillary Clinton's case, it is about power, and it's about choosing the right advisors. She has in her aspects the fact that she is attracted to powerful, charismatic men who will let her down, who will betray her. And it's no surprise to me that all of that is clustered in Leo, and that she married a Leo.
Well, and
Bill,
I was going to ask the question, how much of Bill's influence goes into her decision-making process?
a huge amount. This is a dual presidency, and actually Bill, who is a far more talented, and she admits this. I mean, she's honest about it. That Bill is a far more talented politician than she is, and that's the honest truth. And she's right to say that. His influence as the first gentleman, it's already showing how he's really playing it well, being behind the scenes. I mean, Bill Clinton, I've met Bill Clinton a couple times, and I was present at a speech, and I tell you, the TV does not show the animal magnetism of that man. When you meet him in person, he just fills the whole place with his energy still. And it's quite remarkable. For him to kind of put a lid on that and step aside for her just shows what a consummate politician he is, a brilliant politician. And yes, he's going to be in the shadows. He's going to be in the bedroom. He's going to be at home when she's done being her chief advisor. And she's even said that she might make him a special envoy on fixing the economy in her administration, which is interesting and checkered in a way, because one could argue that Bill Clinton, in his time as president after Reagan, put the second nail in the coffin of the U.S. economy by opening up the media to be corporately taken over, by opening up the banks and the financial systems, by taking out the limits that Roosevelt had put in that had caused our longest prosperity for so long. I mean, people can blame Bush at the end for the recession of 2008, but Reagan started it, Bill Clinton enabled it, and Bush gave it the coup de grace. And so to have him back there to do the NAFTA and do the bad trade deals and all that is, it's going to bring a lot of heat to what I see from this chart will be a very afflicted presidency. And also, since it's a shadow of this aspect, is also the aspect of scandal. Scandals from miscommunications, scandals from secrets, scandals from influence playing and influencing with using the Clinton Foundation to, they've made an incredible network to, and some of the people that they've awarded awards of humanitarian awards in the Clinton Foundation, like the Tutsi leader of Rwanda, he's a blood-sucking killer. He is a dictator, and so she talks about we don't want to elect dictators. Well, the Clinton Foundation honored this monster with an award of a humanitarian award because, of course, there was some money passed and
Yep.
influence, and now the Clintons have Rwanda in their pocket. Now, I'll say this, that politics is a dirty game. And, people who have the Pollyanna idea that there isn't a lot of graft and corruption, I mean, just look at how well Vladimir Putin can manage Russia, because Russia has a culture of corruption that's just inbred in the system of power. The oligarchic powers of Russia are as old as the Romanovs and the czarist regimes. And Vladimir Putin does a really good job running his country and dealing with the dirty side of it, too. So, I'm a realist in politics. I believe in realpolitik, where you don't deal with with ideology, you deal with what works. And so, if the Clintons could use their influence, however shady, to actually make things better, i.e., here's your power, giving a good person the power to do good. Um, it's like classic example. Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt have the power of celebrity, and they use that power with taking photographs of their kids and all of that. Like, if you do that, then you give us this amount of money, and then we will give that to some charity. Or, she works as an ombudsman for the UN. He rebuilds neighborhoods in Louisiana after the Katrina. They use their power. They don't abuse their power. They use power to do good. Now, it's possible the Clintons could, with their network and their connections, could actually get a lot of things done and improved all over the world. And I wouldn't have a problem with that, because I deal with realities, not with what I wish things would be like. I think that the spiritual path is about finding what's real, not what's bullshit, so, and hoping that you can paint lipstick on that BS. It's so that's always possible. However, I look at her chart, and scandal keeps shadowing the Clintons, and they get away with it, and they get away with it. But like before, at some point, they don't get away with it. Monica Lewinsky, it's something minor, something petty. It's something that, compared to the dealings of the nation, a man's private difficulty with sex is really not a impeachable offense. But it hurt the Republican Party to try to take him out that way. It was the end of Newt Gingrich's political career, basically. That still hurt him, but people loved him so much that he still ended up ending as a popular president. But Hillary Clinton doesn't have that love. She doesn't. People don't know who she is. She doesn't know who she is. And I mean, on top of that, she does, though. I have to talk about her positives. And she has a chart that I have a lot of empathy for, because I also have vast, big squares in my chart that really bring constantly the friction of having to grow to me. But like her, I also had counterbalancing trines. And her main counterbalance is her Piscean moon. I mean, she's very much a water sign. She's definitely a water personality. Depths that you don't know about. A surface that sometimes wavelets falsely. But there's a lot of depth and a lot of potential in her. And her Piscean moon is actually trying her ascendant, her Mercury, and her Venus. So that's why she's still in the game. That's why she's survived. And that's why she's also, to a certain extent, embraced challenges of life, turned her tragedies and her difficulties into challenges to grow. And in a way, her mother was a good mentor for that, although a bit of a tiger mama when it comes to it. When she was being bullied for the first time, she wanted to hide in her room. And even last night, they were showing this in her video, where she was talking about how her mother said, no, you go out there and you face these people. You never run away from a bully. And it's funny, because that theme was in the beginning.
Thank you for watching this portion of our interview with John Hogue. If you're enjoying today's program, please click on the button below and subscribe to our channel. If you want to hear this interview in its entirety, become a Just Energy Radio insider at justenergyradio.com and access full shows commercial-free, and gain access to our over 9 years of show archives. Don't forget to share this episode with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So until next time, I'm Dr. Rita Louise. This is Just Energy. Be blessed.